Hello, everyone. My name is Monica Sack. I am the Senior Director of Conference Programming, and welcome to the very last session of the South by Southwest Conference. We did it! After having been absent for 2 years, I felt humbled this week to be around so many incredible individuals inspiring me with their passion, creativity, and innovation. And I just want to thank you all for helping bring back this event that is so important to so many of us. And I can't wait to do it all over again next year. Speaking of next year, a large portion of our conference is made up of ideas that come from our community. For 2023, we'll be asking for session ideas around the end of June of 2022 through our panel picker system. If you have an idea that you think would make a great addition to our content lineup, I encourage you to enter a proposal. And check out our website for more information. Also for today, if you would like to ask a question, please use the Slido Q&A platform that can be found in the South by Southwest Go app, as well as the online schedule. And now for our closing keynote. Over the pandemic, my boss, you might know him as the Chief Programming Officer, Hugh Forrest, and I read many books together. And one of those books was Crying in H Mart. And I will be honest, I am not one that really enjoys memoirs, so I was a little bit hesitant to read this, but this book ended up becoming deeply personal to me. There are so many parts that I directly identified with. Growing up in Oregon, trying to straddle two different cultures, spending summers in my mom's home city, struggling to connect with my mom, finally coming to an understanding with her, oftentimes through food, but then ultimately losing her to cancer. It's a roller coaster of emotions that Michelle Zauner captures so well in her book, the highs and lows splashed on those pages, and all of us bearing witness. And then there is Japanese Breakfast, where she plays guitar and sings lead. Her voice, dreamy and ethereal. The melodies, so balanced, living somewhere between melancholy and hopeful. Her most recent album, Jubilee, earned 2 Grammy nominations for Best New Artist and Best Alternative Music Album. I feel so grateful to be able to have Michelle Zauner as our very last session. For me, she is the perfect embodiment of what South by Southwest tries to highlight: creativity and inspiration. Interviewing Michelle today is Associate Manager Editor of Rolling Stone, Angie Martosio. Last note, right after this session concludes, we will be holding a book signing at the right outside of Ballroom D for Michelle's book, Crying in H Mart. Also, if you want to check out Japanese Breakfast today, they will be headlining at the Urban Outfitters UO Live in Austin at Space 2420. Her set will be at 6 p.m. Now, please join me in welcoming to the stage Michelle Zauner and Angie Martosio.
How's it going?
Great, how are you?
Good. How's your South by been so far?
It's been good. I feel like I'm one of the few musicians that actually really enjoys my time here. Even though it can be tiring, it's a really special way for me to see how much our band has grown every year. I really had my start at South by Southwest. I got signed to a label here and found our booking agent here, and so it kind of holds a special place in my heart, honestly.
What's been your highlight this week?
What was my highlight this week? Room service.
Absolutely.
I had a really excellent club sandwich in bed. Definitely a highlight.
Totally. So this past year obviously has been a wild run, but let's start with the fact that you're nominated for 2 Grammys coming up soon. Yeah. What is it like being nominated for Best New Artist?
It is surprising and wild. I feel like it has really helped my anger management skills, because every time someone cuts me in line and I find myself getting upset or something, I can just be like, well, you're a Grammy nominee. Or if I mess something up or I'm not getting something right, I can soothe my ego with But you're a 2-time Grammy nominee, so it's gonna work out for you in the end.
Yeah, and let's not leave out Crying in H Mart, which is a New York Times bestseller. And it's soon to be adapted into a film, so can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so I have actually finished the first draft of the screenplay. And yeah, I'm in the revision process, and I don't know how any of this really works. And there are 2 brilliant producers attached, Stacey Scher and Jason Kim, and it's with MGM's Orion, and I really love and respect that team, and they've been nothing but supportive. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what the next steps are.
Yeah, absolutely. And with writing and the film and obviously music, do you see all of these modes of expression as one thing, or how much are they in common for you?
I mean, I think that they're all a type of narrative, and I think that it's all a type of storytelling that I'm fascinated by, which is kind of simple, just ordinary life, and what makes that moving and extraordinary, I guess. And so I feel like that's something that all of my work kind of has in common, is just the way that ordinary things move me, and finding the story in that.
And something that I love is that, we chatted a bit during the pandemic, and a lot of these projects had been done, and you were sitting on these things waiting to release them. So what was that like for you creatively?
I just felt like a crazy person. I feel like so much of what you do as an artist is just this like super heightened belief in yourself, and it's about like trying to maintain that for really long periods of time, and to have to suspend that for a year was pretty difficult. But yeah, I mean, good things come to those who wait, I guess.
Do you think it changed the course of your career at all? Because the second we started getting back to life, you kind of just exploded and blossomed.
Yeah, I mean, I think that for me personally, my artistic path has always felt very slow and fast at the same time. It's been a gradual growth. I did not anticipate this level of I did not anticipate being nominated for Grammys, or a book that's been on the bestseller list for more than 1 week. I thought I might like sneak in at number 15 and then fall off, but I did not anticipate this level of this type of response.
And tell me about your influences growing up as a kid.
I grew up in the Pacific Northwest, in a small town called Eugene, Oregon, and I feel like around like 12, 13, I really wanted to be the type of person that was into music. And so around that time, I like bought a lot of classic rock CDs, like a lot of like Led Zeppelin albums, because I was like, that's what people who like music listen to. And then as I got older, I started kind of developing a bit more of my own taste that was probably pretty regional. A lot of Pacific Northwest indie rock, like Elliott Smith and Built to Spill, Modest Mouse, and those types of bands.
I know you're a huge Kate Bush fan, so what kind of other female artists have inspired you?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, the really big one was Karen O, who I talk about in the book. And yeah, I've actually never seen the Yeah Yeah Yeahs live, but my friend had a Yeah Yeah Yeahs live at the Fillmore DVD, which seems so outdated at this point. But yeah, I remember just being so blown away because, I didn't grow up with that many role models. So to find someone who is half Korean and doing everything that my mom told me not to do was really exhilarating for me. And I just remember watching her lasso an XLR cable over her head and spit water everywhere and think to myself, like, how do I do that?
So this was like your moment that you decided you wanted to be an artist?
I think so. I mean, there were other moments too. I remember driving up to the Crystal Ballroom in Portland and seeing Built to Spill for the first time. And there was a band signed to Jade Tree that was called Denali. And it was a very, I just remember, it was a front woman with a guitar. And it was just very much about her songwriting. And that was really exciting for me. I feel like Avril Lavigne really paved the way, and I feel like a lot of young millennial girls were probably exposed to their first like woman playing a guitar weirdly through Avril Lavigne. And I remember that being really impactful for me to just see that.
And now we all feel old because it's all turning 20 this year, her album.
Yeah.
It's definitely fun. But do you think that any other concerts had a big mark on you growing up?
I feel like those are the main ones. The other one that comes to mind is just experiencing the DIY community for the first time. So I remember seeing a few upperclassmen just play at a coffee shop. My friend and I just like biked there, and there happened to be 3 kids from our high school that were playing acoustic solo sets that were very in the vein of like the anti-folk movement of the time. So like kind of like Kimya Dawson, like Mount Erie sort of style. And one like great thing about that style is that it feels like anyone can do it if you have something to say. And at the time I was very insecure about like my voice and my musical talents, and watching 3 people from my class perform live in a coffee shop just seemed so thrilling to me. And it made it feel very accessible in this way that I think had a big hand in why I play music today.
Did you ever have any thoughts about any other line of work, or was it always music?
I remember when I was like 5 years old, I wanted to be a pianist, which was so funny because I hated playing piano, but I did like the idea of, I think I always loved the idea of playing music, or just being some type of creative in some way.
And you know, with this past year especially, have you been able to meet any of your idols yourself? Like, what has that been like?
Yeah, this was weirdly the year that I like had to meet all of my idols. That's like whether or not I wanted to. I mean, I think that like your team really thinks that, I'm gonna like roast them a little bit, but my team is always just like, oh yeah, you love this person, now like meet them and like talk to them and befriend them. And I feel so frightened by that. And I've had to do it so much, but it's mostly been very, very pleasant. I weirdly thought that Jeff Tweedy was gonna be like a huge asshole, and he could not be like the sweetest guy. I was just like, I don't ever want to meet Jeff Tweedy because he just means so much to me as a songwriter, and I feel like he's just gonna ruin that for me. And then I met him, and he you know, it was like one of those really enchanting experiences where it just got even better. He's such a solid, brilliant, nice guy.
So was this before or after he covered Kokomo, Indiana?
This was after. That blew my mind.
That was amazing.
I was in tears. That was like a big career highlight for me.
Totally. And let's talk about the record in general. First, tell me though, having a third album, it's something special that a lot of artists decide, it's very intentional. What did you have going into that in mind? What did you already know you wanted to do?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the first album that you can really start to think about your catalog as an artist and where you are in your discography and how it relates to your previous work. That was sort of what I was going into it. And I was, you know, thinking about records that I love that are third albums. And of course, like for me, like the perfect third record is Bjork's Homogenic. And so I had very lofty ambitions for myself. I knew I just wanted to make something big. And that didn't mean especially, I didn't want to make something pop. Like I feel like if you can hear an indie band trying to go pop, you can like hear this like cloying desire to get into an arena-sized space. Right. And I just wanted, what I really loved about people like Bjork or Kate Bush are that they're these totally singular, very bizarre artists that somehow can still maintain massive appeal and make, you know, pop music completely on their terms. And so I just really wanted to find what was bizarre and weird about my particular style of songwriting and lean into that as much as possible. And by then I had also started getting more experience with string and horn arrangements. And I was working with Craig Hendricks, who is our live drummer and also produced Soft Sounds from Another Planet and Jubilee with me. And so I think that I just had a better idea of like how ambitious we could go. And so I wanted to just make something that was very, very big and very ambitious and kind of pulling out all the stops, like very theatrical and joyful.
Let's talk about joy, because that's a huge theme of the record. You had the title Jubilee for a long time, right? Tell me about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I really wanted to go back to a one-word title. And yeah, I mean, I feel like I've just become so known as an artist that has talked so much about grief and loss, and I felt like I wanted to just go to the opposite end of the spectrum. I felt, especially after writing Crying in H Mart, I felt like I had said everything I needed to about that experience. I had spent the last 6 years writing about my mom's death, and it was time to kind of move on creatively. And I think it was sort of an unexpected thing for an indie artist who's kind of expected to be very sad and broody to write an album about joy, and I wanted to see where that would take me.
And obviously the lead single, Be Sweet, we spoke on the phone and I was like, is this pop to you? And you're like, nope. But I agree that it definitely has, it's not exactly like the rest of the album. The one that I think is like the whole thesis of it is Paprika, which is the opening track. Yeah. Tell me about not wanting that to be a single.
Yeah, I don't know if that was a good idea or not. My label really wanted it to be a single, and I definitely, part of me wanted it to be too, but I think I loved the idea of like withholding the first track, because I didn't like the idea of like the first and second singles to be out. So when people picked up the album, they already knew the first 2 songs. So it just was a way of, I don't know, it just was weirdly important to me at that time to kind of keep it under wraps.
And let's talk about Michael Imperioli, because why would I never want to talk about, always. He appears in the video for Savage Good Boy. How did that happen?
I am a big Sopranos stan, and so is my cinematographer, Adam Kolodny, who has made all of the music videos with me. And I knew pretty early on what I wanted the music video for Savage Good Boy to look like. I wanted it to be kind of one of the most lyrically literal videos about a man that is very wealthy and kind of coaxes a young woman to live with him in a bunker while global warming sinks the planet. And so pretty early on we were like, oh, this might be a really good time for like our first celebrity cameo. And so we were kind of brainstorming who would be good, and my friend Spencer from Charlie Bliss was like weirdly like reposting a lot of his Instagram content, and we were like, whoa, Michael Imperioli is cool. He like really likes Moses Sumney and My Bloody Valentine. He just like seems really down, and he's also like aged like such a fine wine. Like he looks so good. And so I just thought it would be really funny to like put him in this like very different kind of character, and I thought that maybe he might be down just because he's like a cool music guy.
Was he a fan of yours beforehand?
No, I don't think he had any idea.
But
he's like he is someone who's just like so supportive of young artists, and like was really excited, and into it.
And once that video came out, he was like, Japanese breakfast is my favorite. So he was he's a very
cool guy.
And that video, tell me about how much you put so much effort into these videos. That was like a trilogy, if I'm maybe correct. Tell me about that.
I think that we always kind of think of our music videos as trilogies, maybe because we're like so obsessed with Wong Kar-wai, but and also like typically like an album has 3 singles, and so you have to make 3 videos. So I kind of always just think of like, for Psychopomp we made 3 videos, for Soft Sounds we basically made 3 videos, and so we wanted to find a way to connect the last 2 singles in an interesting way, and it's just fun to like hide like little Easter eggs and everything, and it's fun to see who picks up on that. So that was the idea.
A lot of the record, obviously, these songs are about you, but I know that you kind of went away from that on this album. Like something like Kokomo, Indiana, you kind of went into the mindset of other people. What's that like?
It's great. I think it's, I'm like I've been married for 8 years, and I have a very like loving, stable life without much longing, which is like the real, meat and potatoes of music. And I think that in order to get that feeling back sometimes, it's easier to like channel yourself into like a fictional narrative. And so I found that to be really helpful. And I actually think that you can make something feel more universal in that way if you just like can create like a fictional specificity within that.
And musically, you recently learned how to play the piano for this record, right?
I have played the piano since I was 5, but very poorly. And I revisited it. I think I just, I usually write songs on the guitar. And I felt like I just wanted to pull myself out of my comfort zone a little bit and write more on the piano and keyboards and different instruments.
And something I also love about Jubilee is that it incorporates these beautiful string arrangements. What was that like to do?
Oh, it was great. I mean, you feel like really smart when you do stuff like that. I think I wouldn't have had the courage to do work on that without someone like Craig, who has like such a rich musical education and is really good at that kind of thing, and kind of gave me the courage to try that out as well, and fall back on him when I didn't know how to do something. But it also helped working with playing live with various musicians. So we had been playing a few live shows with Molly Germer, who plays violin in our band, and Adam Schatz, who plays saxophone. And so I felt more comfortable, having that sort of dialogue with them early on, that, they were gonna come play on the record and not make fun of my like terrible sheet music.
And with the Grammys coming up, you're against Olivia Rodrigo. So are you a fan of Olivia? I have to ask.
Not anymore. Just kidding. I'm really happy. I think that she's an incredible talent, truly, and always rooting for another Asian in this world.
Very true. Are you working on a new album already, or what's that like?
I am like thinking about it. I think I probably will start flirting with songwriting again in the next few months, but I haven't officially started anything.
It's not like you've had much time to do anything else other than...
Yeah.
You're playing Coachella too, though.
We are, yeah.
Are you like pumped for that? Are you gonna be nervous? What's that like?
I think I'm gonna just be purely pumped on how excellent the catering is at that festival.
What are you most excited to eat?
Last time they had like a poke station. I was like pretty into that. They also have like 8 different types of like infused waters. That's really nice. But yeah, I love to go ham in that catering tent. That was actually like the first festival that we ever played. And I was like, is it always gonna be like this? And it's not. It's all been downhill from Coachella, honestly. In terms of catering.
In terms of strictly catering. And what is it like to play these festivals where you see fans in the crowd that all know every word to your songs? What is that like for you?
It's great. It's wild. It feels wonderful to see that happen. It's like all I've ever wanted in this lifetime.
And I have to ask the basic question of, what is it like to be a New York Times bestseller?
It's great. It's kind of like having a Grammy where you're like, I'm gonna die with this. Like that will be attached to my name forever. And that was really wild to have 2 things like that, where it's like, when you get introduced now, you're always gonna be a Grammy nominee, you're always gonna be a bestseller, and it feels pretty sick.
It'll be on your bio forever.
Yeah.
Was there a specific moment that you learned that it happened? Do you have like a fun story of discovering that?
Yeah, it was really sweet, actually. I was like doing so much press during this time. I was doing like 9 interviews a day on Zoom. It was pretty unreal. And I was supposed to do, I guess we were doing the virtual book tour, and I was like doing it. We had to do like tech checks, which are like honestly so useless. And I was like, okay, I gotta log on for the tech check, and like my entire publishing house and my management and everyone that like worked so hard to get it there had like changed their like Zoom backgrounds to be the book, and they were all like smiling, and I like logged on, and they like pulled up the bestseller list, and it was a real surprise. It's like it was really exciting.
That's so special.
Yeah.
I'm glad you weren't like, no, there was no moment at all, actually.
No, it was very special. Yeah. As special as a Zoom can get.
That's totally. And something that is so amazing about Crying in H Mart was that it has an amazing beginning story. It didn't just come out and just become a book. And walk me through that very first Glamour essay and how that happened.
Oh yeah, I was working at Colossal Media. I immediately regret saying that. But it was like it's like one of those cool jobs that's like, they think that, oh God, this is really bad. It was one of the cool jobs that's like, it is cool, but it was not cool for me, I was basically, it's like an outdoor advertising company. Yeah. And so I would like make maps of what stuff was around our walls to like try to sell it to people. And it was so unfulfilling. I always thought that like if I got a real job and like finally set down a creative path that I would be like very successful and good at my job. And it turns out that is not true. And so I was working there at the time and I was just feeling very unfulfilled. I had started mixing Psychopomp and then, you know, I kind of like had this, you know, I was doing this thing where I was going to H Mart a lot and I was like learning how to cook Korean food from these videos that this YouTube vlogger named Mangchi puts up. And I just thought it was a really cute story. I thought it was like Julie and Julia Korean style. And I was shopping it around, you know, I wrote this little essay and over the course of writing that essay, I realized like, oh wow, there's a lot here. I've never really done this before. I never really wrote nonfiction. And I think I just uncovered a lot that needed to be written about later. But yeah, I sent it to like every literary contest without an entry fee and every like food blog in New York, and no one wanted it. And I would get like a rejection letter like every month of something that I even forgot submitting to. And then 9 months later, I got an email from Glamour magazine saying I won their essay of the year, and I totally was like, is this spam? Like, I don't even remember doing that. But I won like $5,000 in a meeting with an agent who is my agent now. And it completely changed my life. And I quit my job and I played South by in 2016 for the first time. And then I never had a day job again after that.
That's what we've talked about, how climbing the corporate ladder wasn't really your thing.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Thanks to South by Southwest, yes. I have a job.
And through that agent, that's how the New Yorker happened, correct?
The New Yorker happened in another really strange way. Actually, my agent at the time, I think, could kind of tell that my music career was also starting to kind of bubble and that was going to be my main focus for the next couple of years. So we didn't actually start working together for a couple years later. And weirdly, my label was like, we have this connection at the New Yorker. We're thinking for Soft Sounds from Another Planet, you could make like an interactive website to help promote the album through the New Yorker. I was like, okay. And I got on the phone with Michael Ager at the New Yorker, and they were like, yeah, so we're thinking this like interactive website. And he was like, I don't know anything about interactive websites, but if you want to send me some writing, like I'll read it. And so I had actually been starting to work on this book, and the first chapter was Crying in H Mart, and I thought, okay, I'm gonna just edit this and make it a standalone piece and submit it. And I thought he was gonna like, and I was just like, okay, here goes nothing. And he loved it. He was like, I think you should rework the ending and check the romanization of like bongtigi. And other than that, it was ready to go. And yeah, once that came out, everything really changed in that world.
It's hard to think about now that fans were eagerly waiting for so long for the book after the essay.
Yeah.
It's just a wild time.
Writing a book takes a long time.
Yeah. So you studied creative writing in college. Were you hesitant ever to do nonfiction?
I wasn't hesitant. I didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
You know, I was obsessed with my professor, Daniel Torde, who really taught me everything I know about writing, I feel like, and reading. And I took every single one of his courses except for nonfiction, because I just never thought I would be interested in writing nonfiction. I was like really into like these kind of Kmart realists like Raymond Carver and Richard Ford and, you know, John Updike and those types of people. And I really wanted to write in that kind of style, that sort of like working class, gritty, like ordinary type of writing that's like, you know, hits you in this very unexpected way. I've always really appreciated that type of fiction. And so I just felt like as a woman and, you know, as a half Asian woman, I would have to like explain like for 50 pages, like who I am, who my parents are, how they met, all this stuff, before I could actually get to any type of real narrative. Mm-hmm. So I just wasn't interested in that. I never, ever thought I would write a book of nonfiction. But then once my mom died, it just was like this very organic thing that it felt very necessary for me to write about. And it came very naturally because there was this sense of urgency about it. And it worked out for me.
How do you think writing helped you grieve?
That's a great question. I mean, there's a lot of really beautiful stuff that happens in memoir writing that I did not anticipate. I think I learned so much about my mom because you're like, when you're writing, you're taking, you know, a magnifying glass to all these pieces of someone. And so you gain like such a deep appreciation and a deeper understanding in some way of that person. And I think for so long, you know, so much of the book is about wanting to be a good daughter or feel like a good daughter before it's too late. And I think that there was such a big part of me that really felt a deep shame and regret about how difficult of a teenager I was. And I think that in examining this story and writing it down, I was able to forgive not only the other people in my life, but myself in a big way. Because, you know, when I really look at that story and I think of like what my mom and I were up against, coming from two different cultures and having no friends or no representation that we could relate to about what that particular type of divide and friction looked like. It really felt like what we were going through was such an isolated incident of just two people fighting. And I think in writing this book, I realized, like, of course it was difficult. Of course that's how our relationship was. And those were our challenges because, you know, we just had no one to relate to in that experience. And so I was really able to move on in some ways from the guilt that I had of being a difficult daughter, because I realized that, you know, it was a challenging set of circumstances.
And what's incredible is that your story is not isolated at all. It's resonated with so many people. We feel so strongly reading it. What is that like for you? Why do you think people are relating it so much?
Yeah, I mean, it's really validating. I think that maybe even a few years ago, people would have really looked at this as a very niche book, you know? I mean, that's still very much a thing in all worlds, you know? Like, if you just signed an Asian person, then you can't go and sign another one, or like, you know, you just released an Asian story, you can't release another one. And it always has felt so unfair to me. Like, this isn't an Asian story, it's a story about mother and daughter, it's a story about grief, it's a story about memory, and why does it have to be pigeonholed that way? And so to see it finally be able to like enter the mainstream in the way that it has is so exciting and so validating to me, because I always deep down really wanted to believe that it could.
Are you comfortable being looked up to by all these like young fans?
I don't know if I feel comfortable, but I value it, and I take it seriously, and I know that it's there, and I want to do my best.
And you know, you're probably asked this all the time, but this is the natural follow-up of, do you have another book in you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's one of those things where I feel like I learned so much about writing the first one. The second one's gonna be easier, right? I just feel like I'm really looking forward to applying those lessons and getting better at my craft. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to writing a second book. I think it probably will be another nonfiction book. I've talked about this pretty openly. I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but I would like to someday move to Korea and learn the language. And I think so much of what was really difficult about writing Crying in H Mart was, you know, rooting around in memory. I'm not necessarily someone who feels like I have this exceptional memory, and actually like finding those memories and trying to concentrate on what details to mine from them was really difficult. That I love the idea of writing a book that's so focused on the present and charting progress. And I think that's my next project that I'm really interested in pursuing.
I'm so excited to hear about it. I think it's great that we've come full circle here at South by Southwest. You know, you started out here and now you're doing a keynote. I think we're gonna turn to the audience for questions. I'm gonna read it off the teleprompter though. In your book, you talk a lot about saving 10% of yourself. How has learning from your mom helped you keep grounded?
I think that's really great advice. I mean, I think that it's like created its own complexes that I must suffer now. But I think that, you know, I have a good sense of who to trust, which is so important in all of the industries that I've come to be a part of, I feel like. And I feel like both of my parents were very untrusting people, and so I'm kind of an untrusting person in that way. And yeah, I think it's really protected me from a lot of potentially bad experiences.
Michelle wants to know how it felt to meet Mangchi, which I love that story too. And do you still keep in touch?
Yeah, we do still keep in touch. I met Mangchi before the Glamour essay ever came out. I went and saw her do a event at the 92nd Street Y with Hooni Kim, who runs the restaurant Donji in Hanjan. And I had printed out my essay about her and given it to her and asked her to sign my book. And she's like the most like charming celebrity I've ever met. She just has so much charisma, it's unreal. And when the piece was published, I forgot that it had my contact information on the corner of it because I was like shopping the essay around at the time. And she called me and I was like on tour and it was like an unknown number. And she was like, I'm so proud of you. I saw the essay in Glamour. And so since then we kind of kept in contact and I invited her to do this Vice series called Munchies where I interviewed her and it happened to be the day before my 30th birthday. And I told her, and she was like, come to my apartment. And I was like, what? She's like, I'll make you dinner, come to my apartment. And so my husband and I went to her apartment. She made seaweed soup and bulgogi and like I tried her kimchi and she bought me a little cake and it was like so sweet. And my friend had gotten a reservation at Cote, which is like kind of hard to get a reservation at. And she's like, of course you like outdo me with like the most coveted restaurant like in town, the most like exclusive place that you could go to is Mangchi's apartment. And yeah, she's been very, very kind and very generous to me. I'm really lucky because I think she also like feels like a great responsibility to other people because I'm certainly not the only person who's grieving a parent that has turned to her videos or a lost spouse or, you know, trying to connect with like a spouse's family. Like there's so many people who like feel very intensely connected to her and I think that she has that experience a lot and has been really generous with her heart to those people.
That's great. Kels has an industry question. When you initially started your career, how was the process learning how the industry works beyond just creating the music? Was it overwhelming?
I feel like I'm kind of like a nerd about this kind of stuff, and I always have been. I kind of talk about this in the book, but when I was 16, like, I honestly didn't even just love the like creativity of writing songs. I loved like the industry at the very, very low level. I loved like making flyers. I loved like booking shows. I loved like promoting myself with like local journals and papers. Like I did all my own PR. I did all my own booking from a really early age. And I just loved that. It like made me excited to do that kind of like administrative work for my creative project. I don't know why. It's like kind of shameful, but yeah, now I mean it was really wonderful because I did that for so many years. Like you know, I did that with my college band, I did it with my punk band before anyone wanted to represent us. And so now it gives me such a great appreciation for my management and for my booking and our PR because I did all of that stuff. You know, I did all the tour managing and buying the merch and now yeah, I feel so spoiled that I don't do anything but make art really.
That was actually falling into this next question that's anonymous. It says, it can be difficult playing late shows and writing early morning emails and booking shows in the morning. How do you organize your day in the beginning and now?
Well, now I feel like all of it gets filtered through other people, you know? So I have a very like charm job where I just like sit around and wait for like something exciting to happen, I feel like. But before, you know, it's just about being like an anal person, I guess. Like my inbox is literally like 0 at all times and I like obsessively put things in folders and I don't know, I just liked that stuff. It just made me excited to like book shows and put bands together that I liked and, you know, plan my travel. Like I just was nerdy and into that stuff. But if you're not, I mean, I would recommend finding someone who is because those people are out there. Probably a lot of them here.
Yeah. How did you go about finding your first 1,000 fans?
What?
I don't know. We can skip that one.
I don't know.
We worked really hard. Did any authors influence your writing style or storytelling?
Definitely. I also like never really read memoir before I started writing this book. So I read a lot of memoir, probably books that people would not really anticipate. Weirdly, like my first editor, Robin Desser, was the editor for Cheryl Strayed's Wild. And that book was weirdly very, very informative for me. You know, I think that because that book was so popular, it doesn't really get the literary credit it's due, but I think that book is really moving and really beautiful and just a really heartbreaking look at grief. It's about, you know, this woman who loses her mom and then, does this kind of weird thing to grieve. And that was very much kind of the structure of my book too, of just, what are alternative sort of forms of therapy that are going to help you through this. So I was really inspired by that. I love Anthony Bourdain's food writing. I love MFK Fisher's food writing. I read a lot of food memoir to get inspired. Han Kang's The Vegetarian is a really was really helpful in this weird way. It's a really haunting fictional book by a Korean author. And I was really inspired by that, particularly about how food can be really menacing. There is this element of the food memoir that I feel I wrote where, obviously there's like such a real celebration and joy in food, but there's also, it can be a very painful thing for a lot of people. And especially when that joy was kind of taken away from us and so much of eating food became about counting calories and maintaining weight, there was this real horrifying element of food that Han Kang's book, I think, uncovers in a really beautiful way.
Yeah, absolutely. And we actually have a Peter question coming up. You talk about your relationship with Peter and your love story in your book. Thank you for being so vulnerable. What is it like touring with your partner? And Kathleen.
Oh, it's great. It's really sweet. For the first year and a half when we were kind of testing the waters of if this music thing was going to pan out, Peter actually was not in the band. And I have a very specific memory of being in Belgium with Craig, my drummer, and like having just such a romantic day where we were walking around looking at the beautiful architecture and through the park and sharing a little Belgian fry cone, and we were both just kind of like, man, I wish it wasn't you. So I feel like it's really lovely, like when you have, the love of your life with you all the time, you get to travel the world together, you get to share your deepest passion and most exhilarating experiences. It's very, very convenient. I think I would not be able to tour the amount that we tour without him by my side. And I think also after losing my mom, I am so nervous about the time that I have with the people that I love that I just want to be with this person all the time. I'm so scared of like every moment that I'm not with this person in a way, because I know what it's like to lose someone early. And so I think that is so comforting for me and so important to me to have.
And a great segue here is the video game Sable. You did the soundtrack for. Mark wants to know if you could talk a little bit about that, and did you approach it differently than an album?
Yeah, it was a really unique experience. I think because I've always been the director for all of my creative projects, I was so excited to be like a little brown noser to someone else, Mm-hmm. I just wanted to be like the perfect employee for someone's greater vision, and I think Greg and Dan are two really brilliant people from Shedworks who are the directors of the game, and I just wanted to please them like so desperately. I started very early. I think they brought me onto the project in like 2017, 2018, and I was starting to work on music very, very early on and in different forms. And then I did a lot of concentrated work on it actually that was maybe the one really productive thing I was able to do during the pandemic, was finish a lot of this like 2-hour score for this game. It was so different because, it's an open world game, and so it has to be very, very ambient, which is the total opposite of writing pop music where you're just constantly trying to get people's attention. And so it was like, the only note that they had was just like, can you get it like more ambient? And it's just like, I don't know how to get it any more ambient than this like minimalist pad that we've got going on. But yeah, so that was really, really different. It was like creating loops and sprawling soundscapes instead of like structured pop music. And then another really pleasant thing was writing lyrics for something that is not about you. And I don't know what it's like to explore a post-apocalyptic desert planet, but I know what it's like to be a young girl coming of age. I know what it's like to be unsure about my future and what path to take. And so it was fun. It was almost like I was like listening to a lot of Disney soundtracks and a lot of like Studio Ghibli soundtracks and getting a sense of like, how do you make something that's like about such a broad experience like feel a part of this world when you don't know, that much about like the specificity of like the experiences within the game. And but I actually like some of the songs on there are some of my favorite songs I've ever written. I think are the most beautiful songs I've ever written.
That's great. And there's an anonymous question here that I think it's perfect to end on. What is a food experience and memory that you share with your mom?
There's so many. I think that my favorite thing, I mean, my mom was just like high maintenance, it's just fussy. And, when you're a kid, that's so embarrassing. But, now that I like can look back on it, I mean, I think that she just was so delighted by the human experience. That's like an example of something like so ordinary. I mean, we all have to stuff our face with something 3 times a day. And, to make that an experience, like a fun thing to look forward to and share with people, I think that overall was something that my mom really instilled in me and that I love about her. And yeah, I mean, I just remember all of her strange little likes and dislikes. It's very much how I think of my friends. I know all of like who's gluten-free, who like doesn't eat dairy. Like, I just find that to be a type of affection, remembering those types of things and what makes people comfortable and happy, and that very much feels like it comes from my mom.
That's great. This was so much fun. Thank you so much.
Gigi.
I also wanted to ask you though, last question, what was the best thing you've eaten this week?
That club sandwich,
Really?
I mean, I have to say, like, I have to eat like very simple foods, like when I'm playing shows.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, obviously, like, I've had some really great tacos, but for the most part, I had this, like, strangely just, like, I've been, like, having a BLT kick lately, and so I just, like, really wanted that type of vibe, and I think I was just, like, really tired and really hungry, and I had, like, this great club sandwich in bed, and then I just, like, fell asleep, and it was glorious. So that was, like, my favorite food experience so far.
That's the perfect.
Seems really sad for, like, Austin. It has, like, nothing to do with Austin at all. The club sandwich, but
I think it's very special.
yeah.
But thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.